Hey, I'm Duke on Twitch. If you want to support the channel and greensunzenith.com, you can find my Patreon, merch store, and singles store where you can buy singles through TCG Player or Card Hoarder in the video description. If you want to get in contact, you can also find all that info in the description below for things like donation deck lists or just wanting to reach out. Alright, let's get right into it. Hey team, welcome back to Dukes on Twitch. Back today with a YouTube exclusive. This is a Abzan Maverick list from patron That Maverick Joe, which looks to go a little bit more mid-rangey with cards like Barrowgoyf and Wight of the Reliquary, and also Scythecat Cub to kind of go over opponents. This list is pretty sweet. It's the first one of kind of the build that we'll go with, and I really like how when it comes to the sideboard, it's really just 3 sets of 5, which we'll get to in a second. First up, the mana base. We have 3 Bayou, 2 Savannah with scrublands, so pretty large majority of dual lands. 1 swamp, 1 forest to make sure we can cast some of our creatures through Blood Moon, and then also have access to, say, forest and swamp for Abrupt Decay against decks where we might be wanting that card, but also up against mana denial like the Delver decks and blue-black. One thing that I did want to note early on was that we're not going to change the list. I do think that it would be cool to have an underground mortuary in the list over the 3rd Bayou. So what I'm going to do is add in a different copy of Bayou to represent the mortuary, and then through the league, just have a sense of when we draw that card, how it would go as a mortuary as opposed to a Bayou. So I think it's a pretty cool way to test online, is that if you do want to try out, say, instead of the 4th Wasteland, you want to try something else, add in a different Wasteland as a promo version, and then see when you draw that, how would it go as the other card. This list is pretty cool. We have Gaddock Teeg and Collector Ouphe as kind of our Green Suns combo hate pieces, which are really nice. I think both are still really viable in the format. I would say Teeg, for me, pips Ouphe just a little bit right now. Even against the Ring sort of Turbo Khan Forge decks, Teeg stops Kozilek's command, which is the big thing that Ouphe doesn't stop. Teeg also stops, of course, Khan the Great Creator, the One Ring, a lot of the payoff. So although you give them a bunch of mana with Teeg, unlike Ouphe, you just stop everything they can do with the mana, typically. So Teeg there is actually really nice, and probably a card that I'd go for first with Green Suns over Collector Ouphe, which sounds kind of odd. Voice of Victory is a card that I haven't played with too much, but in the trial and test sort of leagues or games with this deck list, Voice was really solid. The ability just to go a little bit wide with it is cool. Obviously just having control over your turn is fantastic, because for a lot of decks, like say Delver, a non-boltable threat is actually pretty hard to beat. So if they can't daze or force it, then being able to get down a big Scythecat Cub or Wight of the Reliquary is really nice. It does have a little bit of dyssynergy with Surrak, which is a 3-mana 4/3 legendary creature. The spell can't be countered, and it also has trample. And then whenever a creature you control or a creature spell you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you draw a card, which is pretty sweet. So if you don't have the voice in play, then obviously counter magic hitting your creature spells, removal hitting your creatures. Surrak is going to provide a fair bit of card advantage, which is pretty nice. It can be Karakas, which is cool as well if you want to save it. It could actually be quite a hard threat for some decks to beat, especially with Karakas available. So Surrak's going to be pretty interesting to see as a Green Suns target when it comes up. Like when would I go for Surrak over another threat? But yeah, this could be really, really cool to see. And then we do have Wight as well. So this deck is a little bit low to the ground. We do have like the Wight of the Reliquaries, the Scythecat Cubs. We don't have many of the other hate bears like Thalia or Scavenging Ooze. But I think that with cards like Bojuka Bog in the mana base and access to them through Wight, we should be looking okay against a lot of the decks we'll be facing, but I am keen to see how much we miss some of those sort of silver bullets you typically have through Green Suns, which we've taken out in this case for a more sort of mid-range plan. But Wight, just a really underrated card, I think. It's obviously really
performed in Cradle Control, but I think that there should be other decks that take advantage of it. I just feel like right now maybe Black Green and X decks aren't too well positioned in the format, that it's just a bit hard to be trying to find other ways to play it. But Wight, I feel, has been super strong in Cradle Control decks that I've played. I haven't played it too much in Maverick, but I'm really keen to try it out. And obviously very good as well when paired with Scythecat Cub. Otherwise, pretty normal. Dragon Sniper is a really interesting one. When I saw this card printed, I just was actually pretty surprised by how much text it actually had. And I think against a deck like, say, Delver, if you do just want a bit of a threat blocker, then Dragon Sniper is great. Obviously, it allows you to have a little bit of pressure as well in getting that 1 in each turn with Vigilance while also being back on D. So it's a pseudo Maze of Earth effect, I guess, of Green Suns. But yeah, it would be interesting to see how many decks we take this out against, how many times it might actually save us. But yeah, I think it's kind of cool card, so I'm pretty keen to see how it goes. To the sideboard, we have 3 Force of Vigor, 3 Abrupt Decay, 3 Dampening Sphere, 3 Faerie, 3 Thoughtseize, which is kind of where I typically start with a sideboard. I'll go with a 5, I'll go with Graveyard, Artifact and Enchantment, Control, Combo, and then sort of Creature Hate, which is what Joe's done here pretty in a sort of similar sense. Thoughtseizes, I feel, just are pretty good right now. A lot of decks have so much value that they always have cards in hand. So Thoughtseize against some of the sort of Stoneblade decks or the blue-black tempo decks isn't too bad if you do just want to have a pretty efficient way to deal with a threat that you might otherwise not have a great answer for. It's also great at slowing down a lot of combo decks to be able to then get something like a Teeg or an Ouphe into play. Faerie Macabre, Joe talked about Leyline, but liked how Faerie was a little bit better against some of the Reanimator decks, and how you can also just cast it and swing with it. One thing that I do think that Maverick has to do right now is, with Leyline, it obviously comes into play at the opening of the game, and your opponent knows about it. So they can wait to draw into removal for it and then go off, or they might have a plan B that actually doesn't use a graveyard. So that plan is great. It can buy us time to build out our board, but I like the sort of Faerie Macabre or Surgical or Endurance plan where if your opponent goes for it and spends resources and then you have a way to deal with it with Endurance or Faerie Macabre, etc., then I feel like that's where Maverick has to be. You have to be getting your opponent to kind of not go all in, but definitely go for their graveyard plan, and then you can deny it instead of just allowing them to know from the get-go, hey, it's turned offline, your graveyard's going to get exiled, you have to find removal or bounce for this Leyline, and then you can go off. So I think that Faerie, for me, is really well positioned right now, because there's only a few cards you really care about. Obviously, Ouphe has a few, but we also have a few ways to deal with Ouphe. So I'm keen to see when Faerie comes up, how we can potentially look at, hey, how would have Leyline been in this opening hand, or would it have sort of shifted how the matchup goes. Dampening Sphere, a card that I have seen a little bit of, but not as much in Legacy as I thought I would compared to, like, say, Modern. It's just a great card. And when Ancient Tomb decks, especially Mystic Forge decks and Cloudpost decks are doing well, it's a great card to have because it's also just a good hitter against combo as well. And being a non-creature means it doesn't die to a lot of creature hate. If you go in all in on your bears and your opponent has something like Massacre, then that's kind of rough to lose all of them at once. So to have, say, creatures and then also artifacts and obviously Thoughtseize on the stack doing work, it's really nice to attack combo and other decks at sort of different angles instead of all being on one true form. Decay, Joe said that he did have some issues with Cutter and also Tamiyo and wanted just a nice sort of flexible way to deal with those cards without having to worry about them getting, well, without the removal spell getting countered. So Abrupt Decay is just a great card. There's not too many threats above 4 that we really care about. The Ring obviously is pretty hard to deal with. Some planeswalkers like Khan or Kaito can't be hit by Decay, but I think it's really nice that Joe's gone, hey, these are the threats that I have an issue with. They're all below 3 CMC. I really want a removal spell against those decks that can't be countered, and Abrupt Decay just fits that role. So I'm really happy to see that. And then Force of Vigor. I think Force of Vigor is just, in a way, the force of will for green decks, just like Endurance. I've been wanting to find room for 3 in Maverick for a long time, and here we have it. So I'm pretty happy to see 3 Force, yes. That's about it. Obviously, no Knight of the Reliquary in this deck, which is pretty huge. No Thalia. But I'm really keen to see how it goes. There could be a world where we might have to tinker a little bit of the main deck to have a bit more game against the combo decks, because obviously cards like Scythecat Cub and Barrowgoyf are great, but if they're really only beating down and not disrupting, maybe your combo opponent just gets that little bit more time to set up and doesn't really care about that life total too much. So yeah, really keen to see how this goes. Let's get into it. I'll see you in round 1. All right, team, round 1. We have a 1-lander with double acceleration, which is a tough one. I'm not a big fan of keeping 1-landers because of just, especially right now, there's a few Wasteland decks like Blue-Black Tempo, Delver, that I'm not a big fan of this. A fetch land off the top would obviously be great, but there's just so many cards you can draw into that make you miss that land, and I'm not happy with being like turn 1 Hierarch, turn 2 Hierarch pass or Hierarch hold up swords. You really want to hit that land, so I really want at least 2 lands in hand, so I am going to mulligan this. Sadly here, it does come up that the swamp isn't really the card that we can keep, and again, a 1-lander, so a little bit unfortunate, but here we're pretty good. I think here I'm happy to drop the Karakas and the Barrowgoyf and play a pretty low to the ground game. We could potentially just double spell on turn 2, which would be nice. And I like that Wight gives us a little bit more interaction than Barrowgoyf would. Here we're just going to go for a Savannah as it turns on all our colors, but I'm a little bit scared of like a end step Entomb. We do have the swords, which is nice as a just in case, but we'll see how this ends up. I would love to see just the Surveil land. We don't see the Surveil land. Atraxa. We did put Karakas to the bottom, but we did shuffle as well. Okay, so it looks like we're going to be up against blue-black. No force, which hopefully they just don't have naturally, but we'll see what happens next turn. Unfortunately as well, Dragon Sniper would be cool, but they do have the Bowmaster potentially. And Thoughtseize. That'll make it tricky. I'm going to check what they grabbed. They took the Bowmaster and they took a Daze. So I think here we're just going to be playing the Wight. Which is, if they're aggressive on the Bowmaster, on the Ignoble Hierarch, we do have Green Suns for Dragon Sniper. But Archon there I think is going to be too good. There's not too much we can do here. Get rid of the Hierarch. I could have gone for Dryad Arbor there, but I think with both of these in play, it's a little bit too hard to come back from. I don't really want to show the Talons, but even here, obviously Karakas comes in tapped. 1 swords. Yeah, I think like I could try to swords the Archon and then potentially get Dryad Arbor, sack, get Karakas. But I think I'd rather just put some more effort into the other games. So blue-black. We can take out some of our bears, which is very easy. The Voice of Victories actually aren't too bad. Even just 1/3s that turn off all counter magic are pretty sweet. We do like the fairies, of course. The Abrupt Decays, I probably don't mind at least having 1 decay in the deck. Swords are great. The Dragon Sniper, like it's nice against, say, Murktide or some of the bigger threats, but against a Bowmaster deck, a little bit tough to try to stick around. There's a world where we can like cub it. I think I'd rather just have like a removal spell instead. I'm also going to go down on 1 Mana Dork just because of Bowmasters, but I kind of like everything else. I think this is pretty good. I could bring in more Abrupt Decays, maybe over like one of the extra voices. I do like Surrak. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, sadly the turn 1 Entomb into turn 2 Reanimate, just a bit tough for this deck to enter without having pretty much exactly Endurance. So this is like a turn 2 Voice into Cub potentially, or Surrak the following turn. It doesn't really interact with their Entomb Exhume lines, which is what I'm really afraid of. I'm not too afraid of like their mid-range plan. I think that we have a pretty decent mid-range plan. And there's definitely a case of, what do I lose to? I lose to Entomb Exhume or Entomb Reanimate. And this hand doesn't really have anything for it outside of the swords. But, you know, swords on an Atraxa or the bigger Archon, it just doesn't line up too well. I wouldn't mind trying to mulligan towards a hand with, say, Noble Hierarch start with like Cub and then a land and then Faerie Macabre. Yeah, okay. We do get punished a fair bit here, which sadly I think it might just be another 5. Opponent's got a 6 as well. Here we don't have green mana either, which is pretty rough, but I think we just have to keep it and kind of hope. Like a 4 against blue-black is sadly just probably a little bit too tough, so I think here it might just be Wasteland, pass, Talon into Ignobled. Could actually be like just Green Sun's Ignobled. Keep the 2 beaters. I don't mind Karakas pass because it turns off Tamiyo. You could always hold the Karakas, but I kind of like that if their play was just turn 1 Tamiyo, if they are playing it, that it just turns that off. And I don't really want to play the Talon yet, and I don't want to play the Wasteland just yet either. Okay. I'll go for Bayou here just to turn on all colors, and then just play out our Cub. But again, this could just be Entomb into Insta Brainstorm. Okay. I mean, still turn 2, 2 mana, Entomb Reanimate is an offline. Okay. Well, that's nice for us. Unless they put the card on top. Yeah. Yeah, so I can obviously play out a creature, but it does get taken out by the Archon, so really tough. Really tough. Hopefully we can play against blue-black again and get some real games going, but not the start we want, but maybe we can bounce back. We'll see you in match 2. Hey team, welcome back to round 2. We have a pretty decent hand. We have a turn 2 Grist potentially, some interaction in swords. If Ouphe is relevant or Bog is relevant, not too bad to have them in our openers, so pretty happy to keep this. Grist also just a nice way to get rid of Ouphe and maybe make it a removal spell if it is relevant. Plains Pass doesn't give too much away, so I could go fetch for Bayou to then turn on turn 2 Orcish Bowmasters, which also turns on, say, Wasteland off the top and Wasteland them, but Plains, I assume maybe D&T or some sort of... I assume D&T, so I'm going to go for getting my mana together. I think Forest Pass gives away the least amount. Chrome Mox is interesting. Maybe Initiative? Okay, so 3 mana. Anointed Peacekeeper. Interesting. Spells your opponents cast with the chosen name cost 2 more to cast. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name cost 2 more to activate, unless they're mana abilities. Goes for swords. Okay. I think here I'm happy just to play the Ouphe and then play the Bog tapped. Turns off the Chrome Mox, and Bog most likely isn't going to be relevant in this matchup. So just getting that landed to play tap now is quite nice. So swords costs 3, which we currently have in play. Interesting. Okay, they're just going to give up. Maybe they were a little bit tilted by the Ouphe turning off the Chrome Mox or just didn't really want to play out this game, but very happy to know what they're on because I don't mind a Force of Vigor against Chrome Mox decks like this. The Teeg is a pretty easy cut. I do like some number of Abrupt Decays, maybe even the full 3 if they are playing the new flying creature that turns off activated abilities of creatures, planeswalkers, and I'm going to say artifacts. Bowmaster probably not the best, but I don't mind it as a flash blocker. Maybe not. I mean, Voice of Victory as well isn't that great, but I assume maybe the Bowmasters, at worst, being able to deal 1 to a 3/3 and then double block and trade, I don't really mind that, so I think this might be it. We did see 3 planes early on, so I'm not sure if Wasteland's going to be great here. And if they are an Ancient Tomb, City Traders deck, obviously Wasteland's a little bit better. But that also means they're probably a deck that's going to turbo out a creature that gets the initiative, which this hand doesn't have a great time against. So I don't think just like the one creature on turn, what, 4 or 5 if we double Wasteland early on. I think I'm happy to look for a hand with a higher density of spells. And this is actually it. So I'm happy to keep this and probably just bottom the Endurance. The Dragon Sniper is really nice. It's just early fodder. Interesting. So I think here I'm just going to hold up the Verdant for swords. Seems like a Seasoned Dungeoneer. Sure. Thankfully here we do just have swords for. Untap. Play the Bog. Bog them. Play the Sniper. Probably have a bit of a reader for this one. We're also at 2 mana, and we have obviously 2 drops, so land off the top, or land and Sniper getting in would be pretty sweet. Vigilance also really nice in this matchup, so the Wight next turn will be pretty strong. Ooh, Archon's going to be fine. We have the Abrupt Decay for it, which is nice, which I think is... Ooh. Okay, so we can actually swords this, attack, and then get a basic, and then play the Wight as well. So, although there is a bit more flexibility with the swords hitting things like Seasoned Dungeoneer, I think just being able to get in this turn is a little bit too good. They could have a Solitude, but Solitude pitch on this I'm pretty happy to see. Yeah. Pitching a swords as well is pretty huge. They go back to 4 mana. Let us pass. Interesting. I think here I'm happy to just play the Ouphe as it's the creature that I care about the least. But Wight is also interesting because of Talon gates. Oh, the One Ring. Yikes. Wasteland not doing a whole lot here other than potentially turning on Cub. Honestly, yeah, it's tricky because I kind of see like this game over, but I think that the 2 damage from the tombs and the ring might add up. That potentially the Wasteland is better for something else, like maybe another white source that isn't a plains. It's tough if they hit a Solitude, of course, because the lifelink is just so good. Funnily enough, I can Wasteland the Flagstones, but of course that goes against the reason to Wasteland. Okay. Sadly, the mana here we can't double spell, but we can get the Wight into play, which is just a 2/2 for now. Oof, another swords. I think that's a pretty easy concession. Very interesting. Maybe actually voice isn't too bad because it does go wide when attacking. Yeah, like endurance as a flash creature is alright, but dampening sphere turns off their soul lands, but I don't think that's enough. Really just want to go up on creatures, I think. Thoughtseize is pretty interesting as well on the play, but I think like maybe we can just like take out the Bog and play with this with 28 creatures. Maybe 1. Maybe the Ramunap we can take out because they do have a lot of basics. Yeah, definitely not an easy matchup when they have their fast starts. Okay. Just because we can do something like if they play a turn 1 initiative creature, fetch for Dryad Arbor, and then swords it, attack, take the initiative. Wow. Alright, we can try. Yeah, man, Solitude. We do have Ouphe to fight against the Grim, and they can follow up with Barrowgoyf, which isn't too bad. 1 top, 1 bottom. Wow, nothing. The Ouphe turns off the stash, which is nice. Swords and Peacekeeper, tough. Not too much I can do against that. I'm not going to play around Ephemerate, just so I can end step swords, untap, decay the token, and then try to get something going from there. They go down to 1 card. Interesting. I'll get the Swamp in case I want to double spell something. Play the Grist. Tick down, getting rid of a token to deal with the token. Pass. Oh, of course, they can't, with Voice of Victory in play, they can't do anything. I need to get used to this card. Okay, 2 mana. Swords. Okay. I'm pretty happy to Lost Well here. Both pretty good. I'm going to put Cub on the bottom. Keep the Bowmasters. And that way, tick up Grist. I can take them off the Promox and then just pass with Bowmasters open. Okay. Nice. Well, our opponent just didn't want to play. So we got there, which we're on the board, which is nice. We'll see you in match 3. Hey team, welcome back to Dukes on Twitch. On the play with Dragon Sniper, we have to keep this. There's no way we're not keeping this. We have interaction in Wasteland, Green Suns. I'm keen to see where this goes. I'm also happy just to go Forest Dragon Sniper. Legacy is just... this is where Legacy's at, right? Scalding Tarn. Look, if they, bolt the Dragon Rage Sniper, I'm pretty happy. I think here I'm pretty happy to Wasteland them as well. To attack first. Well, they see the spell. Interesting. Wow, we kept it off. That's pretty nice. 2 lands off the top, though, is not that nice. Pretty happy here just to pass back. Maybe try to Green Suns next turn for Scrub. Wow, they still have no removal spell. It's really fascinating. Barrowgoyf. Happy to attack first. And then, honestly, I'm not in a rush that I don't really want to throw either of these into a daze. I do want to think just about next turn. I do probably want to get the Barrowgoyf out of bolt range. Okay, it's out of bolt range. Oh, it has to attack. Haha. I see you've fallen into my trap. Pretty easy block here. Wow, cleanup. Cutter. Okay. Another land ain't great. I think here we're going to keep the lands just in case of Cub off the top. I can only assume they have a force here. Yeah. And there it goes. Oh, still stuck on 1 land. No. Okay. Interesting. I think here I'm happy just to get a endurance. It just slows down the game enough. If it resolves, it does. To take them off Murktide as well here is pretty fantastic. We have Dryad Arbor up as a blocker as well. We have more than enough lands to play around with. They're going to attack because they probably have a bolt. So now they have to see if they want to bolt the Dryad Arbor, which isn't great because then we can block with the endurance. They probably allow us to block with the Dryad Arbor and then just bolt the Dryad Arbor before damage. Trigger the trigger the Dragon Rage Channeler. That's pretty sweet. Play the Voice. Land. Play the Wight. Can't counter that. I think because they're at 14 as well, I'm happy to attack here. Yeah, they're just going to pack it in, which is quite nice for us. We will take the Abrupt Decays. I think that's it. We'll take out the Teeg. Take out the Collector Ouphe. The Dragon Sniper did a lot of work that game. I won't lie. I do like a lot of this. There's not really a card that I want to cut, and I really want to keep my creature density high that I could consider just cutting a Green Suns. There's not typically one thing here that I want a Green Suns for. Potentially Endurance is that card, or Sniper. But I really just want to keep getting creatures onto the battlefield that my opponent has to deal with. So I think it actually is just a Green Suns. Take out a little bit of the flexibility, but just have that high number of creatures. Cool hand. Yeah. Really nice, actually. Like turn 1, if they play a creature, if they play a spell, we have like Noble. If they daze it, then that's fine. We still have swords to deal with their board. Surrak can't be countered. Karakas can save it. 4 mana as well is really nice. Yeah, nothing here means we can just go. Probably still for a basic off the top. Especially with the Noble there. Let's have a quick think, because with this hand, I probably don't mind my opponent like bolt Wasteland. And this does open some flexibility for us as well, which is nice. If they bolt here, I assume they have Wasteland. No. Cutter's fine. I think here I'm happy to take them off the token, play the Hierarch. Next turn, Surrak and Karakas. Ooh, all right. I don't think I need the Force of Vigor. I think that's just too niche. I think the Abrupt Decay is nearly niche enough that it obviously hits the cutter. Interesting. So we're going to draw a card here. Okay. This then triggers. This then triggers. Pretty happy to return this. Play the Surrak. Play a land. Fetch. Go for Bayou. Play the Dragon Sniper. You can show on the cutter starts, you really need Abrupt Decay. Very close to dead. We can't Karakas because then of course trample happens. You can hope that Talon gates buys us a turn. I almost wanted to play Illness in the ranks. Okay. Interesting. Block here before damage. Talon gates out the DRC. Trade. Next time we get to Bog. Okay. Bog you. We're probably not blocking because Cutter gives trample anyway. But yeah, sadly the one swords didn't cut it. Really need to find like multiple swords or endurance or abrupt decay. Tough. I think we're just running this back. I don't think there's too many changes that I want to make. I definitely don't want to take out mana against Delver. Sadly, that's just a free mulligan. I think we keep this in bottom and Noble, and then just go for the start of turn 1 Noble, turn 2 Scythecat Cub with Catacombs. Sadly, against a Daze deck, I'm not in a position to Cub to land after Cub. I probably want to land before Cub. Okay. I don't mind that. I think here I'm just happy to Wasteland back. Wow. Okay. A mana dork would be kind of nice. I don't mind that either. I think here I'm actually happy to go for basic and just play out the Cub. If they want to force that, that's fine. But then have Bowmasters to really prowl on either a DRC. Potentially. Wow. That's a huge hit. Let's go for Savannah. A Barrowgoyf. Sticks. I guess Barrowgoyf is my lifelink. I was trying to think of like no ooze. I like the Surrak. And then honestly here I'm just gonna upkeep Bowmaster, play around Daze, put it on the field. Really pressure any of their like land into ponder. Yeah. Okay. Well, we got there. I mean, both of those games were off turn 1 Wasteland. They didn't find another land. So it kind of gives you an idea of what happens when it comes to the matchup sometimes. Can just get lucky with Wasteland. Cutter is, yeah, Cutter's tough. Cutter almost makes me want like a Plague Engineer effect, which is obviously still okay against, say, DRC. Some of the go wide strategies, Nadu, I don't mind Plague Engineer against. It does something against Ouphe if your early spells allow you to stay in the game. You can either turn off Poxwalkers or Narcomoebas, which is kind of nice, but obviously Bridge from Below changes that a little bit with what they can actually do in terms of turning on, say, like Dread Return. So, yeah, look, 2-1. Can't be too upset, but yeah, we'll see how we go in the fourth. Hey team, welcome back. We have a pretty sweet hand. We have turn 1 Ignoble, turn 2 Grist, turn 3 Ramunap Wasteland lock, so pretty happy to keep this. We can also just start on the Savannah, which is nice. Save the Verdant Catacombs, to say Dryad Arbor if we want it with the Grist. Ooh, Savannah, Delighted Halfling, interesting. I don't mind going for Grist here and just ticking up. The halflings are kind of annoying, but getting the Grist into play and ticking up would be great. If it's a land in the bin, Ramunap can grab it. It is. We can also go after their mana if we really want to. Trade the insect with the halfling. Wasteland the Savannah. I mean, pretty happy here to try to deal with the Nadu. Illusionist. Yikes. I think in that case, I'm happy to go wide and not show the Ramunap just yet. I was kind of scared last turn of just like Nomad into Illusionist, and I was correct to be scared. The Ouphe was just in case they run like Shuko. It's obviously one way to go off. Okay. Okay. Kept on top. Green Suns. Quick look. I think I'm happy just to try to get this Ramunap into play. Get back the Wasteland, take them off the archive. Probably tick up the Grist once here, although if I'm scared of like Nadu, then I could easily see going after one of these. So we know they have Illusionist. How scared are we of their mana? I feel like Grist has done its job. I feel like I just want to go after their mana, especially with Ramunap in play. And then I'm not sure what Green Suns is getting. Could be Cub if I want to go a little bit wider. Sorry, a little bit bigger. It could be Wight if I'm looking for, say, Talon Gates' interaction or Bojuka Bog. It probably is Wight. I also don't want a 6 just to make sure I don't give away that I obviously don't have too much going on. Tough. They're obviously a little bit stuck in knowing what to go for. There isn't really anything I can do here. I think we are just going for Wight. Okay. They wanted to put Oracle back, but they could have just cast Oracle as well. My other thought was like Teeg to stop Dread Return, but I feel like they didn't go off because they had the creature in hand. It looks to be just like a classic Bant style list. I'm not sure how much I need the fairies in this matchup. I probably want some number, but obviously the Nadu side is just so brutal as well that maybe like Decay, trying to answer both is where I want to be. I did see Saga, so I think like Ouphe potentially still sticks. Barrowgoyf, I think, is probably how I don't think I'm just winning this by sort of fair combat. Dragon Sniper. Probably don't mind having like 1 or 2 fairies. Could be the Collector Ouphe seeing we have the Decay and just bring in like a Force of Vigor knowing they have Saga. Surrak's pretty sweet. It could just be a Ignoble Hierarch. Okay. Thoughtseize is nice as well, but I don't want to overboard. I'll keep this. Lead on Windswept. Hold up swords. Turn 2 Cub. Sadly, that's something we don't have a great answer for just yet. Probably should have gone for a Scrubland as well to have double Wight for double swords. We'd have a Decay to pitch to Endurance if we need to. That's a pretty huge draw. A land would be fantastic as it would allow us to hold up both Decay and swords, but that's fine. Need to lose 1 swords here. Not the land I want, but we did just make our land drop. Shuffles. Land drop. No attack. Interesting. Just going to pass here with Endurance open. But honestly, I don't want to give them back the swords, so I probably won't target. I might target myself and get back 2 swords. I think I would rather... Yeah, I think I'd rather in this spot hold up both Decay and swords than play the Ignobled. Especially while this is in play. Okay. Still want to get rid of this. I do want to get rid of this. Cantrip's really good. Cantrips are pretty sweet. It's actually pretty amazing playing Maverick for so long and then playing a cantrip deck and just like really understanding the power of cantrips and how fortunate blue players are. It really feels like nothing else. Pretty happy just to hold up here and play around days as well. A Wasteland would be so good just to take them off this green source. I should have borrowed in response. Apologies. Fetch here most likely means just hardcast force, which, yeah, obviously in response to the Ponder would have been really good. But here we are. Wight. I'm happy to play the Wight and just hold up pitch Endurance if I really need to. I'm going to tap like this. Wow, they're going to force this. Okay. Pitching the Oracle. Wow. They do have this Memory's Journey, so they can put stuff back if needed. I'm happy to play that just to play the Endurance around days or hold up hardcast Force of Vigor. Could hold it if I really wanted to for Cub, but I think here we're... Okay. I kind of want to play the Endurance to get more pressure into play. but I do also want to have some interaction. And surely it shuffles. I thought it puts them back on top, but of course, most decks that I play against, yeah. I think here I'm happier to kill the Delighted Halfling, just because we'll see how the endurance goes. I'm going to hold this Savannah. I think at this stage it's not doing a whole lot, and I just want to have it in my opener, or in my hand to be any card. Yeah. This is where obviously cantrips can be really strong, and just part of the Maverick life you have to be open to sort of getting through. But yeah, this is definitely a situation where I think that that Mortuary over the extra Bayou would be really handy, just to have some control over what you're drawing. I think I'm happy to take this bait if it is bait. Okay. 2 cards for them. Another endurance is kind of nice. I'll allow them to have that and get rid of it. A removal spell is actually fantastic, just to have some sort of interaction if they do have the combo at some stage. Interesting they didn't attack with an alchemy, but they also didn't block. I assume they might be sniffing out another endurance. It will target me, so I want that removal back. But now this white isn't as big as it could be, which hopefully isn't an issue. Okay. Alright. Showing the hand. Attack with both. Interesting that they're happy to throw away a Nomads, because I think it's pretty good. I've actually never seen a Nomads in action. So at least here we have outs of swords and also Talon gates. Obviously can't do too much if they have a Shuko as well. Yikes. Tough, because we had swords for one and then Talon out the other. I think that's it. Tough. Well, hopefully we can finish this on a positive record and finish 3-2. So we'll see you in the 5th. Hey team, welcome back for round 5. 2 3-drops, 5 lands is just not really where we want to be, so we will mulligan this on the play. Better, but it's a 1-lander. But I'm not keeping 1-landers. That's pretty straight. Okay. Keep this bottom, and then just play out a pretty fair plan of Dragon Sniper into Cub. Opponent probably not too sure what we're on. Panic Island. Ooh. Maybe the matchup we actually don't mind. Well, they will attack. I'm happy to trade there. Mana Dork here would be pretty fantastic. Endurance not too bad. Again, a really good spot here where we really want to see probably a Surveyor land in the deck. I'm going to go for a Bayou. Just get Cub into play. Interesting. Should do it in their turn in case of like Stifle. Wow, aggressive. It makes me feel like they might have... Oh my gosh, okay. That is fine. So they're going to daze their own land and 2 for 1 themselves, just to save the land. Trying times. All right. A green source here would be huge. We don't find that. We do find a Teeg, which isn't the worst. It does stop Force of Will, which is kind of nice. Ooh, which means if I really want to here, I could... No, because they can still daze. I was going to say I could still pitch Endurance and then block after they've declared attackers, but I think just trying to untap and find a land is a better spot. Not great. At least if they daze this, it's one less thing they can daze, which is nice. So like I kind of want to just Endurance now. Turn off a Murktide. Obviously turn off the DRC as well. Now, I'd rather keep it back if I can. Maybe I'm in such a really tough spot that I'm supposed to keep the Endurance until they attack. Give them the draw step to be able to draw into a daze. But just get rid of the DRC potentially with a Teeg block. We keep the DRC at bay, which is nice. And the land isn't too bad. Now I'm happy just to pass back. Okay. I think here I'm happy to trade these two. Take the 3, turn on Green Suns off the top. Swords is pretty good. 2 lands. They probably play a Wasteland here to keep an Endurance off the field. Unless they play the Trop to then play the Questing Beast. Okay. That's something. I feel very naked only drawing 1 card a turn. But it's kind of part of the game. Alright, what do they hit? Force Misty. Interesting. Pretty happy just block here. Just a 2-2. Bolt me. Brainstorm, sure. Does potentially kill the monk, but still pretty tough. Try to kill this. Tough. I think boarding will be pretty similar in just the decays. Teeg, Ouphe. Yeah, maybe honestly it's just another Green Suns. Everything just seems so like decent that as long as I can get some my mana going, potentially get some removal on the stack around days. 1 lander. Mana this league's been pretty tough. Don't really want to go to 5. Oh, but I just said I did, didn't I? Alright, Karakas, land. I think I'm happy to go for forest. I could have gone for scrubland there to turn on the decay. Hopefully we're okay. And maybe realizing they can't cast anything in my turn. Mobilize is pretty sweet. I think I'm happy here just to play the endurance now. Just because of the voice. Like I could go to end step, see if they fetch, but then if they untap, then it's, yeah, pretty tough to do anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 power in play. That's pretty sweet with the decay in hand. Potentially over 2 turns, even with a blocker I can get through. Take this to a 3rd. I think I'm also, if they're going to untap and have just 2 1/1s, attack with everything. I don't really care if I lose anything. They have a 2/2. Attack with all. They block something with the monk. Then we can just decay the steel cutter. Nice. All right. Post board. No real changes. I really just want to have like 3 lands, a removal spell, even 4 lands, including a wasteland, a removal spell, 3 threats. 3 lands, Noble Hierarch, removal spell, wasteland, 2 creatures. Can we? Just once. Just once, I'd love it. Here we go. Far off, sadly. Like, no removal either. I'm not keeping this. There's, yeah, no. Kind of forced into it, which is tough. We don't currently have black mana, which is a little bit tricky, so I think we try to just go for maybe a Barrowgoyf getting down. A Ponder Stud is probably the best thing we could ask for. I think the only other thing is land into Surveil land end step. And I think we're just going to go Noble into Forest. Okay, that's something. I don't mind trying for the Sniper. I could also go for the Ignoble Hierarch to get black online. Sniper kind of forces them to have a removal spell. I don't mind Sniper. Get to attack here. The nice thing about the Sniper is that potentially it means a bolt isn't going towards the Noble Hierarch. Put a Daze in the bin, as if they already have one. They haven't turned on the DRCs just yet, but potentially a Bauble could do that. Interesting. So a Sniper will trade with one of these. Wow. Yeah. If they force this, I think our best bet is just 2 Green Suns for Dryad Arbor. Or potentially try to draw into a land and then Green Suns. Sorry, yeah, try to draw into a land and then Green Suns for Endurance. I don't think Barrowgoyf's going to be getting there. I think it has to be land Green Suns Endurance. Sadly, not the land we're after. Wasteland's really good because it cuts us off the ability to Green Suns for Endurance next turn, especially with no Cradle in the deck, which I guess makes sense without Knight, but it is a nice way to play somewhat unfair. Yeah, they just get in. I guess there's a chance. There isn't a great attack here. Maybe the Dryad Arbor is a free attack. I guess the voice is pretty good. I just kept the voice back as a blocker. Instant, creature, land, and keep. Interesting. So we definitely attack with the Barrowgoyf. Gain 5. Land 1, 2, 3, 4. Get another endurance. Turn off Murktide. You could try to hit like, I don't even think double. Like double bolt maybe gets there. 1 bolt. 1, 1, 4, 4. Oh, they didn't attack for 5. That's really interesting. Well, Talon Gates is a pretty sweet draw. Don't know if I care. I think I just take it. End step, take out a blocker. Attack with both. That will stop the life gain. Play the Goyf. Have an unknown in hand. They have 1 card. Bauble's pretty good. Triggers a lot. Land, instant, creature. Potentially turns on the DRCs. Or attacks. Swords is kind of cool. I feel like I have to attack with the Barrowgoyf. If it eats a blocker, that's pretty good. Gaining 6 is obviously very good. I'm okay with this. I feel like I'm okay with that. Getting rid of their biggest threat. The DRCs here have to attack as well. So this triggers. This triggers. I think I'll swords the DRC that's attacking now. I'll be taking 6, going to 7. I think that's fine because I get to keep a DRC. I keep an endurance. What's this, like a force negation? Brazen Burrower. Okay. Just lands off the top isn't great. The questing druid's a little bit of an issue. Block, block, block. I think we go to 2. They have 0 cards. Oh, I tapped wrong, I think. Yeah, I can block like this. Yeah. Tough. Really tough. I mean, for a 5, not too bad. Really showed the power of endurance in that matchup, for sure. We'll go to a post-match thought. Hey, team. So we finished up 2-3, getting up against Initiative and Delver, going down to Delver, Blue-Black Tempo, and Nadu, which I think is pretty fair, a pretty reasonable state of Maverick right now, or decks that are similar. I think that Delver should be a pretty decent matchup. I think we have a lot more fight than we showed, and I think that tonight maybe a lot of mulligans caused some of these issues for us. Either from my mulligans being aggressive and not keeping 1-landers, or just us not getting hands that were really keepable. But I think generally those are the sort of matchups you're going to face. Initiative was a bit of a surprise, but yeah, I think if we are facing those matchups, which are typically pretty mid-rangey matchups, then if we are going to build towards a mid-range plan, that we do have to have some amount of fight against them. Blue-Black is really tough with those Entomb Reanimate starts. Unless you have endurance, it's pretty much game over. There's nothing really more to say about that. Nadu's really difficult. It is obviously a mid-range deck that is still taking advantage of some things that we do, like mana acceleration. And it just has a great way to either play a mid-range plan or just combo off sometimes out of nowhere. And the combo itself is really hard to interact with unless you have multiple pieces of removal. And even then, it's very hard to interact with. So, yeah, Nadu's a pretty challenging matchup that I wouldn't put too much thought into when it comes to like trying to specifically target Nadu. I think it's just good to have general answers in the board that target a variety. I don't think Maverick has the luxury that some other decks do in the format of just being able to target specific matchups, because you don't have cantrips, you don't have force of will to just kind of be kind of safe behind. You do need to, yeah, have a flexible amount of removal and interaction for a variety of decks. And sometimes you just don't find it, which is part of the game. So that's all good. The one big change that I would make straight up is adding an underground mortuary, either over the third bayou or the swamp. The swamp's a tricky one because I do like 2 basics in Maverick, and obviously for a long time that's been forest and plains. The swamp, I can see the appeal of it when you have things like Abrupt Decay in the deck, and you don't have something like Outland Liberator to go and find against, say, like a Blood Moon, but I haven't seen Blood Moon in a pretty long time. And I do like that Plains allows you just to cast swords, which is pretty great against the Delver and blue-black decks running Wasteland. Obviously, Decay can't be countered, but swords just being 1-for-1 trading on CMC and cards is great against things like Tamiyo or DRC. Abrupt Decay on a DRC doesn't feel as great as a swords. So I think I would probably go Mortuary, take out the extra bayou, take out the swamp, and add in probably just a plains. We then still have a few sources to get with to get black mana, which is great. The sniper was cute. I don't know if it does enough. A lot of the time there, it provided some amount of pressure, and it did keep our opponents off attacking for a little bit. But against the decks where I really want it, they have so much removal. Like against Delver, they obviously have a lot of burn spells. Against blue-black, they have things like Fatal Push, Orcish Bowmasters. That it's really tricky to be able to, yeah, find a spot where it's really going to like stall the board. Especially when you don't have it in multiples, and you don't have ways to get it back. So like Dragon Sniper with Renegade Rallier, I'll probably be a little bit more behind. Rallier just nice in this deck as well, because there are a lot of grabs that you can get. And I think I would probably have Rallier in the spot of either the Surrak or the third Barrowgoyf. But just because of how good Barrowgoyf is, I think it's probably the Surrak that I just don't think does enough, especially tonight against a lot of the Delver decks. Being a 3-power creature on defense wasn't great. It really just traded with a token most of the time off a cutter. And attacking just doesn't feel that great either. So I reckon I'll try to like probably drop the Surrak and bring in a Renegade. Because it allows us to play to the graveyard just a little bit more, which is really nice, and have some value there. And then, yeah, it just allows you to get things back. Like it's kind of your 4th Orcish Bowmasters or your 4th voice, which is pretty sweet. So the Renegade can be nice as well if you really need the Wasteland to come back. Wasteland as well, I felt like there was a few times tonight where we really wanted to hit it and we just didn't. And to have that 4th version, that 4th copy would have been really handy. Or at least a once upon a time. I feel like potentially this deck just has a fair amount of 3-drops, but not too many more than your regular Maverick list. If you take out these Barrowgoyfs and replace them with other Reliquaries, then you're pretty much at the same spot as a normal Maverick list. It potentially with even more 2-drops, because you have the 3 Bowmasters, the 3 Voice, which you could say are like 2 to 3 Thalia, but then the Cubs and the Wights, like maybe you might have like Outland Liberator or Ooze, but then yeah, I would say the curve is slightly lower. The board is tricky. Carpet of Flowers is probably the card that I think is really good right now. It's great against both blue-black tempo and also blue-red Delver. And in this deck where you are wanting to produce pretty big threats early on, you can get some clunky hands where you have like 4 lands and 3 3-drops. Carpet can just be a nice way to get them out early on. So I think I would look at something like Fairies are nice. Like potentially like 1 Force, 1 Decay, or 2 Carpets. And just like really small changes. I don't want to like reinvent the wheel here, but I think just what I've been playing against a lot of, I feel like Carpet is really solid against. And when you do have a deck of 29 creatures, like you are going to be dying most of the time with spells in hand. So having Carpet to allow you to actually cast those cards is pretty great, of course. The Wights weren't too bad. The Wights do have some nice targets in Talon Gates, Bojuka Bog, Wasteland, Karakas. Bojuka Bog being really the only one that has value as it comes into play other than Talons. And I guess now with Mortuary in the deck, that's pretty cool. The 59 cards, let's say the 60 is the planes. Cub was cool. I felt like a lot of the time, potentially, cards like Cub, Voice, Barrowgoyf, they're cards that a lot of the combo decks right now don't really care about. So tapping out for them just feels awkward because it's kind of either probably endurance or bust. But they are pretty nice in their own right. Like Voice tonight, it's kind of hard to know how good it was, but it felt like Delver had a pretty tough time against it, which is always nice to say. I do appreciate having both Teeg and Ouphe in the deck when we don't have other ways to interact with combo. Yeah, that's really it. I think like they're probably the main changes I would make. I would love to fit once in, but I also really like the high creature count. That, yeah, I'd probably just add the planes and run it back and see how that goes. But we'll see what Joe and I come up with. A huge thank you to all of you coming in and watching. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate Joe for the list. Obviously, times are tough for Mav, and it's actually quite tough playing it sometimes because I love the deck. And like when you're streaming it and you're like doing coverage, it's just sometimes really tough to like keep a smile on the face. And it's not that I'm not enjoying Magic, love Magic, but it can be really tough knowing that I'm, you know, in 2025, in 2020 and 2020 to now, it's pretty much you're coming into leagues with a ham tied behind your back in most cases. And that's just the challenge. That's a challenge that I love, but it does come at a cost and it can be pretty tough. But I think that it's really cool to be trying new things with Maverick and seeing where the soft spots are, maybe where we can really go after the metagame. Like maybe it's a case of just going after 3 decks. And then if we don't play against them, fine, let's battle. But if we do, we're ready. So see how it goes. I appreciate you all. Thank you.